Get back!
Harrison Ford grabs his whip again and puts on his duster and fedora one last time to bring back one of our most beloved characters, Indiana Jones. How did his swan song turn out? How does it compare to the best of a series and the worst? Hi there, it's Micha. If you like to get my take on it, then join me for this review video. The movie starts with Indy trying to receive an artifact, the lance of Longinus, which was used to pierce Jesus' side while hanging on the cross. As this takes place in 1944, it of course results in an encounter with, you guessed it, Nazis. While the lance turned out to be a fake, another relic lands in his hands, one half of the Antikythera of Archimedes, aka the Dial of Destiny, though no one in this movie actually calls it that. This mechanism is supposed to reveal time fissures, which may allow its user to travel through time. However, Indy doesn't believe that, and even the Nazis don't show much interest in the ancient tool, but his friend Basil Shaw becomes obsessed with it.
Sorry!
The same is true for German astrophysicist Jürgen Voller, who was holding the item before Indy took it from him. Jumping to 1969, without using a time travel device. We find Indy as a sad old sack, sitting half naked in front of a TV and screaming at his young neighbors to turn the noise down. He lost his son in Vietnam, his wife filed for divorce, and he is freshly retired, just adding to his depression. This is when his goddaughter, Helena Shaw, Basil's daughter, dropped in unexpectedly.
I'm retiring.
Well, in that case, what are we drinking?
Same for the goddaughter.
Under the guise of continuing her late father's work, she tricks Indy into showing her the dial, well, the half of it that he has, just for her to steal it with the intent to sell it on the black market.
Sorry.
Helena!
Enter or re-enter Jürgen Voller.
Have we met? My memory's a little fuzzy. Are you still a Nazi?
Who is still searching for the relic Indy stole from him and is now working for NASA under the alias Dr. Schmidt, having helped them to put a man on the moon. This service earned him the support of the CIA on his quest, but he also has his own minions at play.
Don't move.
Those goons, while hunting Helena, killed off two of Indy's former colleagues, with him ending up to be the prime suspect. Being wanted for murder, Indy is now on the run and unwillingly forms an alliance with Helena and her teenage sidekick Teddy. With them having different goals and Voller also after the dial, who will end up finding the second half and putting it together? And to what end? Let's stop the synopsis here to not spoil the movie for you. In a nutshell, what ensues now is the usual search and back and forth you would expect from an Indiana Jones movie.
Get in the pool!
Okay, I'm getting in the pool.
Archimedes was fascinated by water displacement!
But is it as good as the previous franchise entries? The good news first, the movie is better as The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, though that is not setting a very high bar. Regarding the acting, Mads Mikkelsen is a welcome addition to the club of indie villains, and of course Harrison Ford is also great again.
I like the hat, by the way. Makes you look at least 2 years younger.
Nice.
As is Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Helena, and the remaining cast is also solid, without giving away any surprise cameo details. The story, the characters and their development, however, is a bit problematic. Why is there the recurring theme of reducing returning characters to sad dopes once they are aging? It happened to Luke Skywalker, Willow, recently Michael Keaton's Batman and Nick Fury, and now Indiana Jones. I get that characters need to have a development and an arc, but starting rock bottom suggests that they were miserable for quite a while, and this is not the storytelling we are looking for regarding our childhood heroes. They also put a new character, Basil Shaw, played by Toby Jones, out of their butt, someone we never saw before, just to somehow have Indy have a godchild in Helena.
Who is this man?
I'm her godfather.
related.
Which didn't further the story, but also begs the question, why not make it the daughter of someone we know, like Salah? But we need to talk about Helena. What was that? They wanted to bring in a strong woman into the franchise, but why does her character had to be so dislikable? Almost sociopathic. She betrays her father's memory, crosses Indy, and then jokes about people who died in the wake of her theft. Twice. And just behaves like an all-round jerk. And just to be clear, I would have said exactly the same about her role if it was a male character.
You stole it.
It's called capitalism.
I guess the studio executives already blame the movie's box office bombing on having a strong woman in the lead, ignoring that she had not just to fight Nazis, but also the script. Who would have thought that 4 guys writing the script around the woman could go wrong? I mean, they allegedly wrote the part for Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who herself is an accomplished writer, so why not involve her in the scripting process? Of course, to make things worse, somewhere near the end of a movie she does a full 180, without any real reason, without a clear development in her character. Her role and whole storyline was just weird.
What are you doing here?
Rescuing you!
Teddy is also a strange character, sharing the same flaws Helena's role presented, just adding being annoying to the mix. As he is interested in flying, practicing with a low-tech flight simulator that has about 3 pedals or so, sure enough, he ends up flying a plane later. No problem. The kid is also a solid sociopath, if you consider a thing that he does halfway through the movie without any hesitation. I guess it was meant to make him appear tough, but that, as many other things, missed the mark. Sure, by comparison, this highlights that Indy is still the good guy, but it made it hard to root for the rest of his team. Also, how they become a team is ridiculous, as are many parts of a screenplay. First off, Indy doesn't believe the item can help you travel through time, so why does he want to stop the Nazis? I guess he was just bored, being retired and all, but that was a weak motivation. Of course, along the way he remembers that in previous adventures he also witnessed things that couldn't really be explained. Well, why didn't they make this his motivation from the get-go? And teaming up with Helena, who was actively working against Indy, was only due to the fact that Indy knows a guy who has a boat, which they need to follow another clue. So apparently, experienced Helena doesn't know how to charter a boat? Okay. Then there is a secret burial site they find in a quite publicly known area, just by climbing up a wall, which apparently no one else before them ever did. Was no one curious what lies above that place? Things like these don't help to make the screenplay stronger. There's also a scene where the team misled the villains, but then they head physically into another direction, which Fowler sees through his binoculars. Brilliant. And of course, like the trope goes, the Nazis always somehow pop up wherever the good guys find a new clue, and always in that exact moment. It is also mind-boggling that they only reveal the villain's master plan 15 minutes before the movie is over. What was that about? What really bothered me though, which is becoming a recurring theme in modern cinema, they do not bother to explain the mechanics of things to us anymore. What I mean is this: we never get a proper explanation of how the dial was supposed to function. Yet still, a character makes a statement about miscalculations, but we, as the viewer, can't really say if that makes sense or if the whole idea behind it is flawed. More and more movies just expect us to believe what they tell us, by lazily keeping the details and functionalities behind their MacGuffins vague. That way they expect us to not spot plot holes by just not giving us enough information, thereby offending a solid portion of their audience who will not stand for that. Of course, again, there is something outrageous happening along the way, which really stretches our will to suspend our disbelief. Personally, I thought it to be a bit much in this movie, but still, at least, there were no aliens showing up this time. One should have expected that developing a movie over a period of at least 7 years would allow for the time to create a proper script. But as those years also included handing over the reins several times, I guess this was the more likely outcome. Without spoiling you, they even botched the ending a bit, by not allowing Indy to choose his own destiny, which might have been a fitting end for his story arc. Instead, a happy end that felt too forced was shoehorned in. There were a few more inconsistencies in the story, but I guess I highlighted the greatest culprits. Don't get me wrong, even with all these plot flaws, it is not a bad movie. It just doesn't live up to the storylines of the original Indiana Jones trilogy. In a standalone movie with another character, it might have even passed as solid enough. But let's not forget to talk about the action and the special effects. Let's talk about the aging Harrison Ford. Sure, I get it. To fight Nazis the proper way, that plot part needed to take place in the first half of the 1940s. However, the original screenplay, or one of the many iterations, only planned for a short opening sequence, like we are used to from the franchise. But the director thought it would be cool to expand that to about 30 minutes, because the de-aging technology is so advanced now, they can pull that off. Or so they thought, because we, again, entered into the realm of the uncanny valley. True, there were some moments where it really looked convincing, but most of the time you could see that there was something off. Mostly around the hair and the area around his eyes and the eyes themselves. It really threw me off the plot and action to see this. But maybe it is just a generational thing? Maybe if you grew up with CGI effects like these, you don't even mind them. The voice, by the way, even though people complained about it sounding too old, didn't throw me off. Worked well enough for me. However, then, after the time jump to the late 60s, we have a stunt featuring Indy on horseback, where Ford's face was superimposed over that of a stuntman, which looked even less convincing as the de-aged version of the hero. Action scenes like those really felt unconvincing, as you could always notice the stuntman being way more agile than the 80-year-old Harrison Ford. Sure, we wouldn't expect an octogenarian to do crazy stunts on a horse himself, but at least try to make it look more age-appropriate. The best moments for me were those where you notice that Indy is getting old, like slow running over a street or climbing a wall and take a break midway. Those were charming and they should have leaned more into similar moments. Overall, the action in this movie didn't really present anything new or fresh. The train sequence in the beginning didn't even present a new location to the franchise, and the car chase was also not that thrilling. It all felt very generic. One might even say octogeneric. Okay, moving on to the rating then. But before we get there, let me ask you to like and share this video if you enjoyed it so far, and if you are no subscriber yet, maybe consider to change that. By also hitting the notification bell, you will get a heads up for most of my new videos. Now for the rating.
His final adventure
What's that?
will be his greatest.
Come on!
No. Was the movie better than the previous entry? Sure. But it would have been tough to under-deliver even more than The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Is it a bad movie? No, it is entertaining enough while you watch it. I even legitimately laughed out loud once or twice. Was it what we hoped for in an Indiana Jones movie? Also, no. But I guess no one seriously expected it to be on par with the original series, which likely was the main reason it bombed at the box office. Like I said, as a standalone entity, it likely would have been considered a solid flick, but as an Indiana Jones movie, not so much.
Did they get the likeness okay?
I'm actually bigger than that.
I did like that they used a relic this time that actually exists, though of course its relation to Archimedes is questionable and its proposed use was completely made up for this movie. And the original item looks less impressive, having degraded over time a lot. Besides the mediocre action, my main issues were that the MacGuffin was a bit boring, the character motivation was weak, and above all, they didn't give us enough details to properly realize if the conclusion of the story was a heap of crap. Which I'm sure it was. I really wanted this movie to be great, for our sake and because I love the character and the actor behind it. Harrison Ford worked hard, but the script kept his efforts down. It's not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination, but solid enough to at least be happy that this one was Indy's swan song and not the previous flick. As you likely expect, I'm rating this one with 6 out of 10 points. Better than average, entertaining, but not really good either.
But I've been looking for this all my life.
It is not a perfect ending to the series, but solid enough and better than I feared it to be. For now, let's just hope they don't dream up another sequel, this time only using mocap anti-aging techniques. What about you? Have you seen the movie and were you happy with it? Or did you think it was worse than Crystal Skull? Do you also think the explanation details didn't suffice, or was it just me? Whatever you like to share, let me know in the comments. So much for now, see you next time and thanks for watching. Jumping to 1990. It is also mind-boggling that they only reveal the villain's It is also mind-boggling that they only reveal the villain's master plan 15 minutes. Hey, you.